Thank you, Genesis Gold Group, for sponsoring this video. Hello, YouTubers. Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, are you willing to pay a 30% tax on every purchase you make, be it the purchase of an actual item or the purchase of a service, in order to get rid of the IRS? Well, here the Fair Tax Act claims to abolish the IRS and set a national sales tax, and here's how it would work. I went through this and I highlighted the parts that I want to talk about, and then I have a few comments to make about this. Now, before I even start on this spiel, right, I believe that this will never ever pass, and I personally have some serious problems with what they are proposing here. I would love to see that the IRS one day be abolished, but not at such a great cost of 30% of your time and your efforts, because that's exactly what you'd be paying, is 30% of your time. What does the Fair Tax Act propose? The Fair Tax Act is partially a response to the Inflation Reduction Act. So it's pretty much a counter to the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed last year. And we all know, ladies and gentlemen, that inflation is only going one way, and that's up. The Fair Tax Act would abolish the IRS altogether, and that sounds great. However, let's take a look at this next highlighted area that says Fair Tax Act would get rid of every type of current federal tax, and that sounds great, including payroll, self-employment, estate, death, and corporate taxes, and replace them with a nationwide 23% retail tax that happens at the checkout counter for new, that's a key word, for new goods and services, which means that if you buy something that's used, like a used vehicle, you're not going to pay any taxes on that, right? So that's a good thing. However, that 23% is really misleading. Ladies and gentlemen, I've received several emails in the past asking me what I would do if I had a 401k or an IRA that I wanted to protect against the inflationary forces that we've experienced and are experiencing now. I'm not a financial advisor, but the folks at Genesis Gold Group specialize in helping those who want to diversify their excess wealth by converting their fiat currency retirement plans into a plan that is backed by real money. So if you're in a position where you are wondering what you can do in order to diversify or insulate your wealth against what I like to call the inferno of inflation, give Genesis Gold Group a call, and they can provide you with the information that you need in order to make an educated decision. Once again, thank you very much, Genesis Gold Group, for sponsoring this video. Another problem that I have with this tax is that it would force retailers of any type to have to collect taxes for the government. Now, many of you may say, well, that's not that big of a deal. A lot of states, have sales tax at a state level, and, it's being done. Yes, but I don't believe that it is the federal government's place to be pretty much forcing retailers to do their job for them. And so it's kind of like a trade-off. We get rid of the IRS, but it's going to be up to the retailers to go ahead and not enforce, but collect these taxes for us, the federal government. So I believe that if this were ever to pass, that the retailers should get a portion of the taxes that they're collecting in order to reimburse them for the work that they're doing in order to collect those taxes. I hope that I explained that right. Now, the reason that I say that 23% is somewhat misleading is because the Fair Act tax would effectively be 30%. And you see, this is one of the problems that I have with the way that laws are written, is that why can't they just be straightforward? Stop with this 23% stuff and say exactly what it's going to be, because it's not going to be 23%. It's going to be 30%. All right. For example, and I'm just going to read it out because they explain it very well here. For example, if you bought $100 worth of goods at a store, you would pay $30 in sales tax for a total of $130. The tax-inclusive method of calculating the rate is that $30 of 130 is 23%, not 30%. It is 30% because you're paying 30% on top of what that item cost you. So it's not, it may be 23% of the total price, but you're still effectively paying 30% above what that item would have otherwise cost you, right? So here it says, instead of filing your taxes to the IRS each year, the taxes you pay to the federal government would be calculated when making a purchase online or at the store. Logistically, the law would require all states to participate and start collecting the new federal tax. And that goes back to saying, well, you're going to have to cut these businesses in and pay them for their services, because they're providing you, the federal government, a service by actually calculating and collecting the taxes and then transferring it to the federal government or to the Treasury. So that's where I stand on that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and leave the link to that article on a pinned comment so that you can come and revisit it if you like. But I wanted to show you where I think that they're extremely greedy in asking for 30%, especially if they're going to be getting rid of the IRS. That's an expense that they're not going to have. And one thing that I didn't cover is that I'm sure I don't really follow channels where like CPAs and people like that, tax preparers, have a YouTube channel or anything like that. But I'm pretty sure that this act or this law that they are trying to pass, or that they are going to try to pass, that it's not going to be very popular with the CPA community or the tax preparation community, right? So I don't know if these communities have lobbyists, but that's probably something that they'll lobby against, is that. Again, I don't think this will go anywhere whatsoever, especially the way that it's right now. However, it's a great conversation to have, because the more people that talk about this, I think that something like this could work. And I'm going to show you some of the recommendations that I would make on there that I think it could work if they implemented these things. And if you have any recommendations yourself, leave them in the comments. Be very interesting. But like I said, they're getting too greedy with 30%. So if you take a look right here, I went and jotted down the GDP right here. This is the GDP, gross domestic product, and these are the taxes collected for the last 10 years. All right. So this year is for like the last 10 years. 10 or 11 years. And I went ahead and I grabbed an average of how much taxes were collected as per GDP, gross domestic product. So for example, here in the year 2011, all right, there was $3 trillion collected in taxes. And our gross domestic product was just shy of $16 trillion. So that comes out to 19%. So 19% of the GDP is how many taxes the government collected. And this is a method that has been used historically to see what effects higher or lower taxes have on the population as far as how much the government actually collects. So if you take a look at 2012, we collected 3.1 trillion, but we had a GDP of 16 trillion, still 19%. Which means that the government got on with 19% of taxes collected. Now, I understand this is not including any deficits, right? But if you take a look at 2013, 3.4 trillion, 20%. And then 21%, 23, 24, 24, all the way down. For an average, for like the last 12 years or so, an average of 21.7%. 22% is the average tax collected against GDP for like the last 11, 12 years, whatever this is. So I think that them asking for 30% is they're trying to cover the deficits that they currently have, or the deficits that they've averaged in the past. They're trying to cover that as well. Meaning what? Meaning that they don't have any plans on winding down spending. Spending has to be wound down. In a way, if something like this were to pass, it would, in my opinion, be kind of like a good thing. And I know what you're thinking. I know what you Social Security recipients are thinking out there, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. Or people that are on a fixed income. I'm going to get to that in a minute here. So this would be a good thing because that's all that they have to spend. So let's say, for example, it's 20%, right? They know that's all they have to spend because they can forecast on or about what GDP is going to be for that year. So they know this is what we have to spend. So we can't spend over that, right? And part of the law should be that they can no longer borrow. We need to put a limit to that debt ceiling, and it can never go up above that. Because how are they going to borrow? How do they know that we're going to be able to pay our debt or the interest on our debt if they don't know ahead of time how much people are going to spend? Where people in this case would actually have some power. Look at this. If they're going to collect their money, the tax money, right, their pound of flesh via this sales tax, and they want to send us to some other country to create some kind of conflict, and we don't like it as the people, we the people can say, hey, we're just going to go on strike. We're not going to buy anything for the next month or for the next 3 months, or we're only going to buy the very bare minimum. Our savings accounts are just going to go up and up and up because we're only going to buy the bare minimum, just enough to live on, and we're not going to spend anything in the economy, and you're not going to get your taxes. Imagine how much control that would give us as a nation, especially if we came together. So in a way, that's like one of the things that I think would be good if this passed, with the changes made that need to be made for it to be right. Because right now, 30% is ridiculous. And what about those people that are on a fixed income? Let's go ahead and talk about that. And again, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and leave in the comments what you think could be implemented into this so that it can actually work. Because I'll tell you what, I bet you that if you ask most Americans if they wanted to get rid of the IRS, they would say yes. I would say that probably almost 100% would say yes, except for CPAs and tax preparers and stuff like that, because that's how they make their living, right? Is preparing taxes and things like that. But if we can find a way for something like this to be implemented that would get rid of the IRS and be fair for all parties, I think it would be a good thing, again, because I think it would give the American people a lot more power over the government. Remember what gives the government power? Fiat currency. That's what gives them power. And if we can obstruct them or block them from being able to print more, because there's no way that they would be able to pay the interest bill that's due, because they pay interest on it pretty much every month, that they would be not able to pay the interest bill that's due, because we're like, I'm not buying anything. So we either bring our boys and girls home, or I'm not buying anything, right? Imagine how much power that would give us back. So one of the things that I think they should change to that or add to that is no tax on any basic foods. So if you go to the store to buy bread, if you go to the store to buy milk, eggs, meat, whatever basic foods are, the basic foods. Now, if you go to the store to buy a box of donuts, you're going to pay that 25% or that 20%, whatever it may be. If you go to a restaurant for a meal, you're going to pay that, whatever it is, 25%. All right. So no taxes on basic foods. All right. No taxes on any funds that are paid to Social Security or disability recipients. So if you're collecting funds from Social Security, those funds, they are the taxes that were collected. So why should you have to pay tax with that money again when it's the taxes itself? All you're doing is reusing funds that were collected from taxes that were already paid. Right? Same thing we do now pretty much. But there should be no taxes on people that are collecting Social Security or disabilities. There should be no taxes on those people that fall under the poverty line, right? That fall under the poverty line that are working. So if you're working and you fall under the poverty line, because maybe you're transitioning from one job to another, or maybe you just had some bad luck, you shouldn't have to pay taxes. Well, how are they going to work that out, AP? Well, what they recommended on that article as well is that people that fall below the poverty line, and they didn't say that they have to be working, but that's just me putting that in there, that every month they would receive a rebate from the Treasury for whatever taxes they paid in. All right, so anyone that falls in the category of receiving a paycheck from SSI, from Social Security, or that are disabled, they shouldn't have to pay any taxes whatsoever, especially if they're on a single income, a fixed income, right? Let's see, no taxes on medical care and no taxes on medicines. No tax on higher education, and no more student loan guarantee by the government. So there should be no taxes, that sales tax shouldn't apply to college education. And the government needs to get rid of the student loan business. They need to get out of that business. They don't belong there whatsoever. It's because of government that the student loans, or that the price of going to higher education has exploded over the last several decades. No tax on those who work but fall below the poverty line. We already talked about that. No tax on the purchase of real money. So if you're using the fiat currency that you're getting for the work that you do, and you want to buy gold or silver or platinum or palladium, anything that's a precious metal that's considered real money, well, in the Constitution, real money is considered gold and silver. No taxes on that as well. And no more borrowing, ladies and gentlemen. No more borrowing, no allowing the national debt to go up. Think about how much money, if you watch the video that I put out yesterday as to how much taxes the government has collected in the last 107 years, 108 years or so, you'd be astonished. And you should have been astonished at how much taxes they've collected. And most of that money, ladies and gentlemen, was just wasted. You have pretty much nothing to show for it whatsoever. So let me know what you think. All right, this is not something that I'm for or against. I like the idea of getting rid of the IRS. I like the idea of not having to do taxes, you know, at the end of the year or in April or wherever it is that you do it. I like the idea of everyone paying their fair share, right? But I also do understand that there are some people that we need to look out for, especially those that are like on fixed incomes because they're on Social Security or some kind of disability. But I would really like to see or know what you think. So go ahead and leave it in the comment down below. Other than that, have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. I may make another video today or I may not. I do have a review video of something that I found that is awesome and a great deal as well. So I'm not sure if I'll put that one out today, but I'll probably do it tomorrow for sure. Have a great day. God bless every one of you. God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper. I am out.